It's not only that they're struggling heavily inside of the Gaza Strip, they're struggling heavily internally, politically, and with their security establishment. And how are they struggling? Well, there were a couple of reports. One of them was in the Israeli newspaper Ma'arif's website, saying this: in the midst of the cabinet, Chief of Staff Eyal Zamir lost patience about the debate that he had between ministers inside of the cabinet. Now, he's had so many back and forth arguments with Smotrich and with Ben Gvir, and this time he's having that again. They're having ridiculous demands. They are asking Zamir, one of the ministers in this report, said, why is the campaign in Gaza faltering? And he said, you wouldn't say that. There's a real war in Gaza. He started to shout at him. And stop describing it in that way. And they're telling him, well, we need to go and wipe everyone off, basically. Go for a full-out war. Occupy the Gaza Strip. And the man, again, lost his patience at them. So these people are having arguments day after day. And this is also being published in the Israeli media now. Okay. It didn't stop there. It's expanding. Again, where now? Again, in the Air Force, in the Israeli Air Force. So this report in Ynet in Israel, saying that growing tensions between the Southern Command and the Air Force. In the past 2 months, question marks have been growing in the IDF regarding the Air Force discomfort with the command leading the campaign in Gaza. The reason? The high rate of Palestinian deaths not involved in the bombings and the failure to investigate the causes. Recently, Air Force Commander Tomer Bar personally approved every attack. Nadav Eyal's full column today in Yediot Ahronot. They continued the article. And what are they saying here? Well, they're saying in this report that the Israeli pilots are now asking what targets are we being asked to hit inside of the Gaza Strip, and the command is giving them these targets. In those targets, they clearly state that there might be civilian deaths. However, the rate that they're talking about, their commanders, does not reflect what's happening on the ground, which led to the Israeli pilots going to social media and go to watch the news after they carry out the strikes. Now, several of them started to see, well, massacres, bodies being scattered everywhere, body parts, children being ripped to pieces in half, like we saw yesterday. And they were like, this is not what I signed for. Why are you letting me kill children, right? Now, there have been similar comments from some pilots that were reported before. And when we talk about what's being reported, that's the tip of the iceberg. And these people, of course, there's a notion, you're going to fight for the Israeli army. You're in the Israeli Air Force. You should be resisting to fight from day one, to operate for a genocidal entity confirmed to have killed and slaughtered thousands of children way before the 7th of October. However, some will say, in Israel, they was misled, they didn't know, whatever. Now it's reaching the headlines. And if it's reaching the headlines in Israel, that means there's something much bigger than that. And again, it's causing a big problem for the Israeli army. It's coming simultaneously with an increase in the numbers of Israelis signing the petitions to refuse to serve in this war, calling for an immediate ceasefire, and calling this whole campaign a Netanyahu-based campaign for Netanyahu's own personal and political interests, and it's not for the actual benefit of the state of Israel, nor is it beneficial for the Israeli prisoners of war, who they, of course, refer to as the hostages. So, more problems happening on that front inside the state of Israel. Now, you might think, how can there be so many problems and Israel is continuing down this genocide? How are there so many problems and they're still able to carry out strikes? Well, of course, there are several answers to that. Number one is the fact that the evidence on the ground is showing that they're not having a campaign against the resistance, but only targeting the civilians. The Israeli defense minister said that we are applying a campaign of starvation in Gaza so that we can take political positions from Hamas to apply pressure on Hamas. So they're outright declaring that they're committing a genocide and starving the population as a political tool, basically admitting to be mass terrorists, big terrorists. And the attacks that are happening are primarily the Air Force. Now they're having problems with the Air Force. And who said that Israel isn't looking for a ceasefire? No. Israel is looking for a ceasefire, but they're looking for a ceasefire on their own terms. Now, the Israeli head of the Mossad is back in the picture all of a sudden. We thought Ron Dermer was leading the delegation. Benjamin Netanyahu put the head of the Mossad, the head of the Shabak, and the representative of the army on the side, and he appointed Ron Dermer to go and lead the negotiations because Ron Dermer is a poodle of Benjamin Netanyahu who does as he is told, like this imbecile of a defense minister or genocide minister, Israel Katz. Now, the head of the Mossad is back. Why? What happened? What happened exactly? Well, clearly the man whose job was to delay and play with the timeline of Benjamin Netanyahu and make it impossible to reach an agreement, Ron Dermer, he's not required at the moment because Israel is looking for a ceasefire. And Ron Dermer has been heavily criticized by the families of the prisoners of war, saying that after they met him, they felt depressed and depleted completely. The man came up with no proper propositions, and he only came up with vague statements saying 3 to 6 months and maybe they won't return and. So now the head of the Mossad is back. The head of the Mossad is back and he's going to Qatar. And they're saying he's trying to come back with a deal. But what deal? You see, that's the thing. Number one, the fact that he's going back means, and this is an analysis, the fact that he's going back means that Israel is more serious about reaching a ceasefire. That's number one. Why? Because under him, and he was a man who wanted a ceasefire before Benjamin Netanyahu, under him, they also went through the previous ceasefire or the latest ceasefire. And Netanyahu had many problems with the head of the Mossad before too. At one point, he prevented him from going to visit Qatar. Now that they clearly are interested, he's sending the head of the Mossad to talk. He probably has a couple of options on the table. There are no confirmations about the power that he's been given, the mandate that he's been given to close a deal, but he would typically have multiple options on the table. But what is this deal that Israel is looking for? Israel is looking for another temporary ceasefire. Benjamin Netanyahu is serious about having another temporary ceasefire. Why? Because they are struggling. Because their death toll is rising, because the Palestinian resistance is shocking them, and because their internal situation is diabolical. It's chaos, it's havoc internally, and they need a break up until they get their stuff together again to continue and commit a genocide. This is what Benjamin Netanyahu wants. Why? Because Benjamin Netanyahu is not looking to end the war, but he wants a ceasefire. Him wanting a ceasefire doesn't mean that he wants to end the war. So we understand that Israel is now more serious about having another temporary ceasefire because of the horrendous situation that they are in, because of all of the chaos, the army's capability, people withdrawing from Gaza, them having to release soldiers that they were sending to Gaza untrained following pressure from their families, more being killed by endless ambushes coming from the Palestinian resistance behind enemy lines, internal conflicts between the political and military echelons inside of the state of Israel, and political problems and pressure coming from the prisoners of war families and the majority of the country opposing Benjamin Netanyahu's approach towards the war, and the list goes on. Economy, whatever. So the list is very long. Now, where does that lead us to? Where is this going to lead to? Well, there's a notion here. There's something very important. Number one, some believe that the Palestinian resistance made a mistake by going into a ceasefire agreement with Israel that was split into multiple stages. However, the Palestinian resistance declared multiple times that it's showing a big level of leniency to, of course, end the genocide and reach a ceasefire, but not at any cost. At the cost of, well, they need to end the war. They need to withdraw. We need to rebuild Gaza, and Israel must declare that they're going to end the war. Okay. Israel, they went into this multi-phase agreement, supposedly having, I don't know if they can call them guarantees or not. Israel broke the ceasefire, the United States backed them, and the genocide continued. Now, the tone, at least from some officials from Hamas, is as follows: no more ceasefires with phases. All or nothing. We went through 1.5 years of full-blown genocide. We have over 50,000 martyrs. We are still fighting, and we will either continue to fight, or we reach an agreement. Or we reach an agreement that will end the war once and for all at once. Of course, it could be spread throughout weeks, unless Israel, that is willing to allow all of this process to go all at once. But usually, even if you talk about a ceasefire, you will have days or at least weeks during which the ceasefire is going to be implemented, but no longer like phase 1 and then pause, and then phase 2 and then pause. This is at least when it comes to the Palestinian resistance. Therefore, there is reason to believe that the Palestinian side, led by Hamas as the leading negotiators on behalf of all of the Palestinian resistance movements fighting inside of the Gaza Strip, the ones, I mean, when we talk about the resistance movements and the political parties in the Gaza Strip, those who are really there, the relevant ones, not like the West Bank Authority. A Palestinian president sitting there getting orders from his masters and starting to blame the Palestinians of Gaza for their own genocide, and giving Israel excuses and whitewashing Israeli crimes. The ones that are relevant, God, they are being led, of course, by Hamas to negotiate. And Hamas are saying now, at least in the words of some of their officials, of course, they're saying that we still have leniency, we're still open to suggestions and ideas, but this time we're looking for an all-out ceasefire. It's not going to happen again. They learned from the previous temporary ceasefire, and then they said we're not going into another temporary ceasefire. It took a year to reach another ceasefire. So therefore, that shows seriousness from Hamas not to repeat the same mistakes. Now, clearly there are statements. Will they fall into the trap, or another trap worded differently? We don't know. There was indeed a ceasefire. A lot of aid was going inside of the Gaza Strip. There were breaches from the state of Israel, typically. And then Israel, of course, broke the ceasefire. But there's a very big likelihood that this won't succeed. However, what's for sure is that Israel is looking for a ceasefire. Israel is looking for a ceasefire, and that ceasefire is being negotiated in the with the mediators in Doha now. Moving on to the next thing that I wanted to talk to you about. Donald Trump is saying, I'm open to meeting Iran's supreme leader or president. What happened, Mr. Trump? You were threatening them. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to shoot this, that. It's your fault that the Houthis are shooting. either reach a deal or all hell will break loose. What happened now? Well, Donald Trump, typical, back and forth, 180s all of a sudden, and also trying to put up a show with Iran, also trying to appeal to Iran during these negotiations. Clearly, Donald Trump is showing signs that he is indeed interested in reaching a deal with Iran, despite all of the opposing talks. But it's also coming at a very interesting stage. The United States is talking to Iran about the nuclear project. They're saying that at one point they advised Iran, let's move all of the nuclear project outside. Any nuclear things you have, let's take them to another country, and you need to confirm that you're never going to have nuclear weapons. Of course, forget about what you think, the audacity of the US carrying out over 6,000 warheads to destroy the Earth and the Moon and the current solar system. They're telling Iran that doesn't have anything, oh, you can't have nuclear weapons, and not saying a word about Israel. I mean, and we won't get into that now. But it's coming with the rise of the BRICS. It's coming with the rise of the BRICS, and Iran is very known to be the biggest oil exporter to China. As a matter of fact, the Iranian president said before that Iran's biggest international partner is China. But now, guess what? This is increasing with the oil and with the finances to Russia. Iran signs 4 oil field development contracts with Russia worth $4 billion. A $4 billion investment coming from Russia to Iran. This is something very significant. This is coming amidst talks about the United States imposing more sanctions, them saying that we applied more pressure on certain figures in Iran who trade oil, and them saying that we will apply more sanctions if we don't get a deal, and the list goes on. Now they're signing a deal with Russia, and guess what? The United States can't do anything about that. And by the way, with the rise of the BRICS, the United States could do less and less with their so-called sanctions. The whole BRICS is a way of avoiding all of these sanctions between these group of countries. And even with the BRICS, well, Iran is still exporting its oil to European countries and to Shell and to European and American companies too. But changing names, changing people, changing ships, changing flags, they get there too. And Trump was saying that, he's trying to have a crackdown on these other ways that Iran is, changing its ways to kind of reach deals to do with oil. But again, that's not happening. They're signing a deal now with Russia worth $4 billion simultaneously with Trump's statement that I actually want to meet Khamenei. I want to meet Khamenei, and I also would like to meet the president, one or the other. Now, moving on to the final thing that I wanted to talk to you about, ladies and gentlemen. The IDF, here you go. I'm not going to speak much. Here you go. Can you read the title? IDF soldiers mark Holocaust Remembrance Day in Gaza, Syria, and Lebanon. Cognitive dissonance at its finest. I mean, what is this? These people are going to butcher and slaughter children day after day. They are conducting the worst genocide and infanticide and urbanicide of the 21st century. Landing more bombs on a concentration camp. On a concentration camp called Gaza. The equivalent of five times the equivalent of the bombs that landed on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and those were nuclear. over 100,000 tons of TNT on infants, on children being butchered every single day. And they are commemorating the Holocaust Remembrance Day in Gaza, Syria, and Lebanon. Wow, speechless. Are they serious? It's a very important one. Are these people serious, or what are they exactly? What are they made out of? Are they delusional? Are they real people? Do they have a brain, or do they have something else in their head? Do you have that? They have like packs of straws. What do they have there? Do they have hearts, or do they have other things? I mean, it's becoming very difficult to understand. But yes, that is a headline in 2025. The Genocide Army is commemorating the Holocaust in the same place that it's conducting the 21st century Holocaust. I mean, that's only in relation, by the way, to what they're doing and to their actions. But if you want to talk about commemorating the Holocaust, commemorating what exactly? Your grandfathers collaborated with the Nazis with the Avara Agreement. Hitler and the Zionists played hand in hand to fool the Jewish people. Hitler had a problem with the Jews. So did many parts of Europe. Zionism and Nazism collaborated to make it work. The final solution to the Jewish question. The biggest act of deception against the Jewish people in modern history. But these people, they don't realize that. They are living in that bubble. I mean, the Israeli population, by the way, and you need to understand that very well, is the most brainwashed population on earth, because they've been fed this victimhood and this arrogance and this racism from day one. Oh, we were killed, we were slaughtered, therefore we need to kill and slaughter Palestinians. And they killed us and they want to kill us and they want to kill everyone. Dude, before Zionism, Jews were in Palestine. Return to the homeland. Who prevented you from returning to the homeland? What are we, in the Roman times? Yeah, you had problems 2,000 years ago. Apart from that, Jews were in Palestine. Under the Ottoman Empire, under the previous empires, they were protected. Previously, under Muslim rule, normal. What's the problem? Can't you see that this is a European colonial attempt? Slash test, slash thick ideology and joke. But that's what's happening, ladies and gentlemen. They were actually marking and commemorating the Holocaust inside of the Gaza Strip, the same place that they are committing a genocide in.